Welcome to the Fandom Outpost, your podcast for all things pop culture.
Welcome everyone to the Fandom Outpost. Today I'm with Jim, and we're going to discuss Andor Season 2 and kind of give our thoughts on the whole series and some of the connection to Rogue One and into New Hope and all that fun stuff. So, how are you doing, Jim? First of all, start there.
Well, I'm doing good. I was actually lucky enough to rope my wife finally into watching Andor. She was looking for something Star Warsy on May the 4th, and she had kind of come in on me watching Season 2, and I was like, oh, you think you'd really like this? So I finally wore her down, and she was hooked immediately, so I had the benefit of doing a rewatch on Season 1 as I was halfway into Season 2, so then I had to kind of wait for us to catch up so we could watch the rest of it together. But both happy with content and sad that content is over, but we still always have it, so we can always refer to it. How about you, Bob?
Yeah, it was such a cool thing to have those 4 weeks, four arcs, right, of 3 episodes of each arc. And yeah, it was like something I was savoring each week. And it got to the end, and I was just like, oh no, it's going to end. And I had to watch Rogue One a couple nights after.
We did it right after we saved our last episode for like one particular day, and then we rolled right into it. And she's like, turn it on.
And they're right. The movie does hit different when you realize what all these characters went through. That
Funnily enough, I think that the poster on the Disney Plus thing changed to where Jin was the main character in the poster, and now it's Andor is the main character.
Yeah, Cassian's in the front now. Well, can't blame them for wanting to get the people that maybe people haven't seen Rogue One and watched Andor and want to.
And now they actually have a Cassian walk around guy dressed like Cassian walking around.
Oh, really?
Disney parks, yeah. So I saw that.
Well, that'd be kind of cool.
That would be fun to encounter, right?
Ask if you have friends everywhere.
Yeah, right. You have friends.
So we're missing our other co-host, Mark, today. We'll have to see if we can catch up with him. I know he's been busy, and he's probably on assignment somewhere. Maybe Comic-Con? I don't know. He didn't really tell us.
Secret. So I'm sure Luthen sent him out elsewhere.
Right. So we'll catch up with him next time.
Else up. So I remember first time around he was kind of late in coming to Andor.
Right.
I think we finally wore him down. And then he did enjoy it.
Right.
Not wasn't currently top of his priorities list. Has a pretty full plate.
Well, we told him, which I think applies to this season too, that it for this series, each season, he really had to stick with it in those first 4 to 5 episodes, or kind of really just laying groundwork.
Yeah, it's a lot of world building.
Yeah, and it all pays off.
Right. But season 1.
It's a bit of a, slog to get through. It's really interesting, and I enjoyed it, but it's not that high action and super high drama that you get toward the end of the series, which is like always blows me away.
Right. It's almost like you're watching 4 movies because
this time around, yeah,
they were wise in their construction of it. I think in setting it in 3 episode arcs.
Yeah,
and doing time jumps between those.
And I do give it credit that it didn't do the cliffhanger thing after every episode. It's like, I'm kind of over that a bit, and it didn't really do that. It kind of left you at a plateau of that arc, and then when the next arc started, it let you fill in some blanks about how the characters were acting to one another. Like, oh, that must have been some rough time between that year or whatever, right? Like Luthen has some falling out, and with the rebellion, he's kind of on his own, and there's a faction that doesn't really trust him, and Cassian's kind of in the middle, right?
Right. He's always looking to. It's like, I'm done doing this. He was kind of done with everything. This by about halfway through this, he was ready to be not hanging out with Luthen, right? So.
Oh, Cassian, yeah, he definitely wanted out. and Bix was
he was concerned for her
contributing
because of her
to that
mental health, and yes, his concern for Bix was contributing to that, and for them to live a more stable life where she could kind of heal, having still been messed up by the
Dr. Gorst.
Dr. Gorst's treatment of her. So.
Well, she's been through some trauma in both seasons and was dealing with a lot. And right, Cassian did feel for her. And even at that safe house, you kind of got the feeling like she was feeling like this could be how we could be. You know, we could just have our own place. And
right, she was wanting to go out and do more normal things, like go to the park, and he would be like, no, they put new cameras in the park, we can't go to the park, we can go out.
Right.
And she had started self-medicating herself. So.
Right. So by the end, when I didn't guess it, but when you find out at the very, very end that she was having his child.
Right. I halfway through when they had a big conversation, and she was
on
like,
Yavin?
Yeah, and she's like, I'm listening. And that was like the only thing I said to my wife. I go, the only thing she didn't do is say I'm pregnant. I was waiting for it.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty good.
Just because it was the tone of that conversation. Mm-hmm. And she was just listening. And he was, Yeah. It was probably right before the conversation, right before she left.
Right.
So
that's the thing with the series. Like no one that you weren't, who you didn't see in Rogue One, you weren't sure of their outcome.
Yeah, because there's nothing that says any of those other characters needed to survive past this
season 2.
Right.
Yeah, that's what was like, because I wonder, how did you feel? Like, you knew Cassian survived, you knew...
So I knew Krennic was going to survive, I knew Cassian was going to survive, I knew Melchi was going to survive.
Right. So you kind of knew,
Mothma
like, whenever...
was going to survive.
Who?
But Mothma was going to survive.
Oh, yeah, right.
But, Luthen was on the table. Clea was on the table.
Clea, yeah.
Bix was on the table.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Anybody else. B2 Emo was on the table. You could have gone.
Right.
So
there were stakes still around that you didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
But you knew, like, if Cassian got into a jam, you're like, well, he'll get out of it. But I just wonder how.
Yes.
The story of Mon Mothma is kind of happening underneath all this as we move on with her daughter's arranged wedding, right? And you get a sense of how Mon feels about her role, or how she's from Chandrila, I believe is her planet.
Right.
And it's just like how she sees things, and she didn't quite... I didn't get the feeling like she was really down with the way things operate.
Chandrila seemed very deeply rooted in ritual.
Right.
And I don't want to say it's like it felt like the woman's place was in the home, because that's obviously not the case, because she's a senator.
Right.
But it was like, these are the customs, and you're going to marry your kid off, and it's for social, almost royalty-like, benefits.
Her daughter was down for that, which was kind of...
She was down for that, and she was trying to warn her, and she tried to warn her about that.
It's just like she was not on the same wavelength as Mon.
Yeah,
and the daughter's down with the tradition and down with the rituals, and Mon just kind of had to play along with it.
And during all this, that we find that Mon's friend is kind of like...
Tay?
Yeah, he's kind of in for the rebellion, but he's kind of to the point of like, what's in it for me? I see everybody else kind of getting their gravy train, and I'm not getting anything.
Yeah. It's like Morty in Goodfellas.
Right.
It's like, where's my money?
And he goes off into a very, Goodfellas, Sopranos kind of exit that you never really see what happened to him, but because who's driving his car.
Right, Cinta.
Yeah, that's going to be the last person we see.
Who's part of the Luthen network, right? The Axis network.
Right. And she's all business. I was just saying that we get it was much talked about on the internet and whatnot. The Mon Mothma dancing scene.
I thought it was cool. I don't know.
I don't know why. I don't understand the complaints. Like, what kind of music are you expecting to be in Star Wars? It's like you heard the Cantina Band. That's like jazz. That's
right,
like New Orleans Mardi Gras.
It's almost like people aren't supposed to enjoy themselves or party or have music. It's like these are just people, right?
Realizing, she was just kind of letting go and getting drunk and realizing that she's probably not going to see her friend again.
Right, and she has to put on this front and right.
Yeah, the internet's full of 1,000 Easter eggs for this series, which I've yet to just scratch the surface. But one of them that was interesting was that the song that she is dancing to at the wedding is the same song that is in the club at the very first episode of Andor when he goes looking for his sister.
Interesting.
Except it's played at like a slower and lower
interesting
tone. So
I just read online yesterday that Tony Gilroy is trying to get the stems to that music to release so that people could remix it the way they want.
Oh, fun.
So that's kind of really cool. I read that and I was like, that's pretty cool. One of my favorite characters in this season, well, both seasons, is Dedra Miro. I love that character for some reason. I don't know. She's such really fascinates me.
Love to hate villain.
Yeah, I'm kind of cheering for her, but then I don't want her to succeed too much. But
you can see her intention. She has the actress holds a wonderful sourpuss frowny face.
Yeah. She has some things online where her mother used to say, but call her, I forget the nickname, but she had a nickname. and the actress also, Denise, I believe.
Yes.
She said when she saw the dailies or whatever of the series, she's like, oh my God, it's really bad.
Right.
So, she's a really interesting actress.
And when you see her, she doesn't look, that's not her normal face. So,
right. I mean, she's so intense in the series.
And we do find out that her boyfriend Cyril is on a different planet called Gorman.
I mean, she was a very good ISB,
individual thinker, and
but
she's also the only woman in a room full of men.
That was fascinating, and unfortunately, her ambition undoes her career and her freedom. We'll get to that, but so yeah, she has the idea for let's turn it on themselves by causing having the right people do the wrong thing or something like that.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's the plan. And Cyril's, I think they're still together, but he's kind of working.
He's
secretly,
he's a mole, right?
But it's like a subcontractor of the Empire, right? Kind of.
Right. So he works for a company in Gorman, and he's like an overseer for the supplies. It feels like, and Cyril
he thinks he's getting information to help. Like, look at me. He's always the one that is trying to look good.
Right. So he's a law and order by the book kind of guy, and he has thrown his lot with the Empire as law and order. We see that from the very first time we meet him in the first series, that he's altered his uniform to look more
tailored it, and
and he's ambitious. He wants to move up. He would love to officially work for the Empire, but he doesn't.
Right.
That was his goal first time around.
He wants to be seen. He wants to be his name to be known, and that comes back to later.
And
we'll get to that in the Gorman
and he knows that he is
episode.
Being bugged and watched.
Right.
And that's what they want, because you see him secretly talking to Dedra, on the down low, and kind of reporting back to her.
Because Cassian's dispatched to Gorman by Luthen, and
to check it out to see if it's primed to be part of the rebellion, right?
Right.
Looking to see conditions there. So
things are starting to kind of coalesce around Gorman. And something's going to happen there.
It's going to be a tinderbox.
Right. You could see it coming. And boy, do we definitely, the third arc is the one that is like the pinnacle of the show, right?
Right. It's the third arc is the best arc. I mean, even though the last arc was super good, the third arc is really where the heart of the show lies, and it's the premise is that the Empire is building. They're building a building, and they say it's just office buildings, and then the Empire, it's really going to be like a fortress, like an armory.
Right. An armory, right? Depot, yeah.
Right.
Everyone in the Axis is, it's like people die and you just have to like move on. It's rough.
Right. You don't have time.
You don't have time, and it's all for the cause.
The cause.
Yeah. We could talk about these episodes all day.
Right.
It's like they're so good. The Gorman Massacre is just an amazing episode of television. I mean,
yeah,
no matter what, if it's outer space or whatever, or a spy story set on Earth, it's just so well done, and the tension and the visuals and the audio, the music, and it's just it's such a well done episode. And it's really something.
And it's easily set up and purposefully set up that the Gorman are very French. The resistance is very French. There's even berets. There's
right.
And the Imperials are certainly fascist Nazi stand-ins. So
right.
And it's parallels, and it's on purpose. So, but you can see how things like rebellions kick off, and how things go from peaceful to non-peaceful, and how sometimes the peaceful people don't start the rebellion. It's the other people egg it on so that they can use force to quell the rebellion.
Right.
Cyril comes to his arc. He has a come to Jesus arc where he figures out that, everything he believed in has been a lie, and he's been played.
It's a sad story for him. I mean, he's another great character and written so well. And
kudos to them for not just having him run out and join the rebellion, but for having him stand there in the midst of this tragedy happening all around him and just being lost, because all his underpinnings, all his goals, all his
girlfriend,
his everything he was thought he was fighting for it's all been a lie. All his ambitions, and he's just standing there.
He's been used. And he sees Cassian,
and he finally sees the one guy that set him on this path, and he tries to take his revenge on him. And it reaches a point where, Cassian's like, why is this guy beating the shit out of me?
Right. And like, I have no idea.
And he's like, who? And he asked him, who are you?
And that's the whole thing with Cyril.
That stops him in his tracks. He's like, what do you mean? How do you not know who I am?
That cuts the deepest, because
I've dedicated my life into finding and destroying you. And, he thought that Cassian had this big plan against him or something.
Right. He was like this nemesis, and Cassian had no clue who this guy was. It's a brutal moment. And I mean, it's sad because Cyril goes out unknown, I mean, I guess he'll be shown as a
victim, right?
A victim. He's sacrificed for the Empire, right?
He'll be a martyr amongst. His name will be added to another statue at another plaza, right?
So right, a good young Imperial down by these rebels.
Right. And I could use him as propaganda.
Right. It's sad. It's just a sad ending for a character that, if he could have been maybe turned the other way, would have been a valuable asset on the other side.
And fantastic kudos to the writing and the actors, and because these could all been like super cardboard characters,
right?
And if not written and acted well, Dedra could have been just an evil villain
with the black hat, the whole thing.
And these people, they have some dimension to them, and they have some, you can see where they're in their world and their viewpoint, why they're doing what they're doing.
I love seeing like behind, and I think I mentioned to you about this in season 1. One of my favorite aspects of Andor is seeing behind the curtain of the Empire and their board meetings, and how maybe like Dedra acts at a dinner with her future mother-in-law or whatever.
Right.
Just like, and what outfit she wants to wear, black or white. And it's like just these normal things that, I mean, they have to do kind of off screen to live a normal, some kind of life, not normal, but some kind of life. And it's interesting to see all that. And just
really interesting in her character when she is faced with, she herself is a pawn in the fact
sadly.
that the Empire sends, we're going to send these troops to help you out, but they're going to be like the greenest of green troops.
Right. And the massacre.
Right out of boot camp that don't know what they're doing, except the guy who's ahead of everything, knows exactly what they're there for. They're there to be sacrificed, right?
Right.
And she's
to kick off the massacre.
She's really conflicted when she has to make the call, because she just got done having her confrontation with Cyril, and and they're like, all right, well, do we kick this off? Do we send the troops out to quell the thing? And she's like, she finally has to say, proceed.
Right.
And the massacre happens, and we catch her at a point where she's like having a panic attack.
Well, Cyril confronts her, and leaves her basically, and she's left shaken.
She's super shaken, shook. So this didn't go the way she had planned at all. Right.
Which is strange because
there's a scene she's like, she's really flipping out about everything and how it went down.
It was rough. And the K2 droids come out, and that was like one of the most terrifying sequences I've seen in a while, with just picking up people and tossing them around like ragdoll. It was absolutely like the brute force of the Empire. Why would I need stormtroopers
if I could have an army of these guys, right?
Oh my God, those things were terrifying. And when Cyril they tell him to go in the room, and he opens the door, and they're all sitting there, and the one looks at him. It's like creepy as hell.
Okay, and somebody on the internet has clocked. They went in. They were like, all right, these are the markings on this one that looked at him, and those might match up.
Could it
K2S?
be?
It was him, apparently.
Well, I guess you would have to be, because why?
Scholars that know more than I do and have done the work have identified that one as K2SO.
Oh man, it was rough. Cassian escapes and decides to take the droid, and you're like, okay. I know what's going to happen here. It's going to.
So eventually. We've been waiting for them to be,
tying it in, tie it together.
When do they come together? And I of course would have wanted it in season 1, but there's a reason it's where it's at and why it is, because it would have been too much too soon, and creators were smart. And I heard actually there was a whole K2 arc that they had written where it was like a K2 loose on a spacecraft that was very much like Alien.
Yeah, that sounded.
And they were like
awesome.
Sounded awesome, but it was also like, no, we got to cut this.
I think it was in like that same
first
arc.
Draft, something like that.
That third arc, I thought I heard. It was either third or fourth arc where K2 had that episode written, and it sounded really cool.
It sounded cool, but they cut the fat. They were like, no, this is the first thing that goes. So
Mothma is in the next episode. It's kind of a Mothma.
This is the big Mothma episode, right?
Episode of how she's going to change makes her stand and leaves her life behind and becomes fully engaged with the
She officially denounces the Emperor.
Yeah. Which is another great episode. Those two together are like you said, it's like a movie.
Right. And it was very planned that she was going to do this. And it was very like, all right, you're going to do this, and we're going to extract you out of there because the Empire is going to come after you the second
immediately
you stop talking.
Right. She's never seen the violence that like Cassian's had to go through, but when Cassian's taking her out, he's just mowing, killing people left and right.
Right. And, it's
without a question.
Good.
And she's like shocked at this. And it's like, well, this is what it's like, unfortunately.
She's seeing the physical side of the rebellion.
Right. There's no negotiating. There's no talking your way out of it.
Right. She's not really believing they're going to send somebody to kill her until they do.
Right. It's another great setup of an episode, just building tension and Like, how are they going
was
to,
fantastic.
that could have been like Mission Impossible or whatever. It was just such a well done, how Cassian's going to get her out. And that's another really, really, I mean, those 2 episodes are like A+. I thought.
Fantastic content. Yeah.
Yeah. So that brings us to Yavin, right?
So she's on Yavin, and instead of
we're fully into the rebellion now.
This is where they tie it into Star Wars canon because there's an animated episode of Rebels where Gold Squadron and the Ghost crew escort her to safety. And they mentioned it's like, oh, Gold Squadron's going to take it from here, Cassian. It's like,
yeah, the show did a nice job with that because it's trying to keep canon, and because it had the Tarkin Gorman massacre too, which preceded this Gorman Front massacre, and they just kind of put it. They made a tribute square as where from the first massacre, the second one happens at. So that was
they acknowledge it. Because
weaved it in perfectly.
They know their fans will be like, this doesn't match up. This meant,
Right. I'm not changing it, but I'm just adding to it.
It's maybe like where Dave Filoni comes in and, here's the lore and this is where we have to plug this in. And these little points you can hit are available to you if you choose to hit these. Right.
So Gilroy does a great job of working his way around that minefield and adding what he feels is needed to progress the story. It was cool seeing the Yavin stuff because it's like, oh my god, there's that transport thing. There's the X-wings and the It was very cool
Yavin
to see.
Feels like a place now instead of just like a hangar bay that we see.
Right. You start seeing the little boards, the electronic boards.
Right. And I go, that's from Star Wars. I remember that.
It was kind of a lot of the pointing at the screen stuff.
Right.
But yeah, this is where Bix leaves to round out our conversation from the beginning about Bix and Cassian. This is where she takes off, leaves him because she wants him to be able to focus. Well, she knows that she wants him to focus on what his part is in the rebellion, right?
Right. There's an earlier scene where Cassian has a blaster wound, and Bix kind of tricks him into going to see a Force healer.
I was surprised by that.
In Yavin base, and he wasn't really for it. He's like, "Oh, these people are like snake oil salesmen. This is all BS,"
Right.
But,
which is an interesting take on the Force because it's like, it's not just everyone's, it's like people
everyone doesn't bow to
what?
the Force. They're like, "Oh, I heard about it, but
Yeah, is it really?"
So this lady healed him, and
she's Force sensitive, right?
She was Force sensitive, and she could, she had a side conversation with Bix, and it's like this guy, he carries a heavy burden, and
right.
She kind of confirmed all the things Bix thought about Cassian and where he needs to go and what he needs to be. So
when she leaves, then we're getting into our final arc, which is the BBY-1, which is the year before Battle of Yavin, right? I kind of felt like there's no way they're going to top the intensity of that second from last arc, but because normally like a show, like their penultimate episode will build up, and then the resolution is just the resolution, how all the pieces fall, and the aftermath.
It's a funny thing because where it has to go, right? It has a predetermined ending to a degree. How they get there is, where he starts off in Rogue One, so it's how are they going to tie those two things together? The Empire's whole energy program is really a front for a super weapon that's being built, which of course we know is the Death Star.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's interesting to, find all these characters are now learning about something called Death Star.
Right.
So
it's great that, isn't it, I believe it's Dedra that's the one that first says it.
Yes. When she has a really good, she has a confrontation. So she closes in on Luthen.
Right.
And it was real tense in that
was
little
a great
shop.
scene.
Luthen knows he's burned, so he goes out and he starts melting his computer. And then Dedra shows up, so they're
and
having
it's
a one
at
out
his antiquities shop,
and they have
and
this
such
really
a great
great
conversation.
This really great cat and mouse, and she's talking about she has this antique that you might be interested in, and she opens the box, and it's the unit that he came to Ferrex for. The Star Drive,
from season 1.
From season 1.
But there's a great line before that where she says, is there anything that's not real in the shop?
Oh.
And he's like, well, there are 2 things that have questionable provenance. I didn't catch that until a little bit later. I'm like, that's such a great line, because that's the 2 of them.
Right. And it's, he's showing her a dagger, and, which in turn arms him, because he didn't have any weapon on hand.
Point.
And I was like, there's no way.
I thought she was going to get him with the dagger.
I thought she was going to shoot him. And I
thought she was going to take the dagger and get him.
Oh, stab him with it?
That's what I thought was going to happen.
And I was like, there's no way she can't take him out. I was going to be so mad if she took him out. But of course, she wouldn't want to take him out because she wants him alive for all the information, right?
Right. And that's her fatal mistake, is she got cocky and was like, I'm going to show him, that I found him,
right.
haha. And it backfired big time when he stabs himself.
Did himself a Harry Carey. Yeah, she did it on her own. She did have some people outside waiting, but she kind of did it on the sly.
And they come to find out that she was the one that had all the information that Lonnie was stealing from her files logged into her computer. And it made me laugh because I read some things online about how the whole destruction of the Death Star was because Dedra got the wrong email attachment.
Right.
All the information for the Death Star accidentally came to her.
Yeah, she was on the open chat, right?
And instead of reporting it, she wanted to gather the information to find access.
To use it as a career climbing, tool.
And instead, she gets it all dumped into an informant,
right?
Into a mole.
So
yeah, that's the fall of Dedra's
right. So then we
great
find
scene
her,
with Krennic. Yeah,
he turns full. Turns out he's been kind of a bit goofy and aloof earlier on in this.
Right, the pressure's
episode,
on now.
But the pressure is on now, and this is
Emperor.
his baby. And he has a great interrogation scene with her.
Puts his finger in her head.
Puts his finger on his head, which is really weird and unsettling. And I heard that was improvised by him.
Yeah, it's such a great
show
of dominance.
Right. And just kind of showed her that she was nothing.
We'll do it without you or whatever. And
yeah, we'll try to get along without you.
Ugh, poor Dedra. I felt so bad for her.
Right. Her whole house of cards came crumbling.
In the end, she deserved it, but I just felt so bad that it didn't work out. She got the
fate she deserved.
Yeah, she ends up on Narkina 5 style prison that was like what Cassian was in season 1 in the prison arc, and
so we as viewers know what she's in for, right? The existence
terrible.
That she's in for.
Just terrible life, probably for life in there. Oh
yeah,
that was terrible for her.
Well, we'll be needing her to build a second Death Star, so we'll need parts.
Yeah. So, right, you mentioned Luthen in the hospital, and then there's the whole thing with Clea doing this great infiltration by herself into the hospital to
she saw
kill the one person that she...
she saw him get taken away, and so she had to put together a plan to... She knew she wasn't going to be able to rescue him, but she knew that he wouldn't want to be alive to...
Right. Spill the beans inadvertently.
Interspersed between this action, they have all these wonderful flashbacks and how they became acquainted with each other. He was an Imperial trooper.
Right, some kind of commander or something.
He was a commander for the Imperial trooper, and then he was on some kind of planet, and you kind of hear it all going, some kind of incursion going off camera.
Right, she's a stowaway.
As a stowaway child.
It's a great setup for them because now you understand their connection, and it goes through a progression of time with her and Clea and Luthen as she's growing up, and he's kind of teaching her
these survival skills,
the bad things about the Empire, and so she's learning about all this, and their little connection with the antiquities begins to form there, which is interesting. It ties in. So it's just a great little story about the two of them, how they became so close, kind of like a father to her, but not really.
But right,
it's more of like a business partner almost.
Yes, yeah.
They're in it together, and but in the very end, she does the thing that she has to do for the cause again. She has to kill the most important person in her life. So we have another great escape scene with Cassian and Melshi and K2 coming in too. That's another great hallway.
Unsupervised. Yeah. So they were, I should say, unsanctioned. So they kind of took off and did their thing.
Is that the test flight they thought it was? They're saying it was or was that in Rogue One? I'm forgetting now. How they get out of there. But
I think the Rogue One was a test flight. They were on.
Yeah.
But this one,
they've escaped from that base many times.
Right. So,
well, not escaped, but taken off unauthorized.
Unauthorized, right? So at this point, we've seen K2 get repaired and brought back to life, and then we've seen him in kind of a living situation with Cassian and Melji, where they're playing cards. Or maybe that's a little later in the last episode.
Right, but you get their relationship, which also ties into the Rogue One. You're like,
right.
You see how they have been in a relationship of friendship for a year or two, I guess, right?
I guess we should go back to the extraction. So, of Clea, and which is great. It's a really good action scene. K2SO gets to show up and do his thing, super menacingly.
I know. It's just like there's no stopping him.
Yeah, there's no. And you wonder, I heard somebody going, well, how come the ISB shoots the K units and nothing happens? But like when Jin shoots one on...
I noticed that.
A Jeddah, I mean, you're thinking, well, maybe it's just the caliber of the weapon. Maybe it's a...
Right, I guess you could write it off. But I did notice that in Rogue One. I'm like, wait a minute, she just shot that thing.
She shoots it with one shot,
Takes it out.
I mean, at one point, K uses the commanding officer as a human shield.
I know, because that guy had to deserve it. He was the one that kind of screwed over Dedra.
Right. So,
and he gets it in the end, and is used as a human shield with that tactical unit, which we talked about off air or whatever.
Yeah.
That was kind of a neat thing where they had this kind of like the stormtrooper-esque uniform.
Yeah, they were the Imperial uniforms with Yeah.
It was really interesting, kind of like this
different faction of that. Well, I heard that they had intentionally. I read something that they were intentionally having Imperial units with human faces more than stormtroopers. Because like when the stormtroopers show up, it's like, oh shit, they're stormtroopers. Like when they show up on Gorman in the plaza, there's like a whole battalion of them just standing on steps. But otherwise, all these other characters you see their human faces, giving it more of a human angle or a human touch to it. It's people doing this as opposed to faceless armies.
It all comes together. It all leads up to Rogue One, and it's we find out what happened with Bix. This is how we started our episode off, right?
Right. So
we get the final resolution of where everyone's at that moment.
So things were falling into place, and we really see Cassian gets the next assignment to go meet up with a guy with information on on the base where we find him.
Tivik. Right.
Tivik, where we find him at the beginning of Rogue One. He flies off to do that, and then we see Bix back on the agriculture planet. We see B2 Emo.
He's got a little buddy.
Had a little buddy, so we feel good for him because he was worried about people forgetting him and not coming back and always being left. And
right. So we're kind of, that's nice. He's got a little buddy.
You see the family
they're all sitting around
that they were with, and
then we kind of
do a big pan up, and we see Bix walking out in the field, and
Like, oh, there's Bix.
The only thing she didn't do was put her hand over the grain like in Gladiator,
Right. You're like, oh, there's Bix. There she is. And then kind of the drone kind of comes around her, the camera, and you're like, what is she holding? It's like, oh, no.
It's a baby.
My heart dropped. I don't know about you, but it was like a gut punch when I saw that. I was like, ugh.
Kid he probably never knew he had, right?
Kid he'll never see or know about. Oh, it was rough. That was rough. Tony Gilroy. You're rough.
And Tony Gilroy has said that is nobody in particular. Kid doesn't have a name. He's not related. And I immediately saw things where people were like, "Oh, it's Poe Dameron."
Yeah, let's leave it. Let's leave it alone, please. Let's just let this story marinate and be its own.
Kid is not a Disney character with a, attached to something else. He's, whether or not they do that in the future, who knows? But
yeah, whatever, down the road. But let's just enjoy this for what it is, and
right. That's what
take it as a whole.
So it's really Bix is showing us what the sacrifice is for, right?
Right.
For future generations.
It does leave a little bit of hope, which they can thread through. It's the child that's going to grow up, and eventually the Empire will be destroyed in a few years, and hopefully he lives a good life, whatever, with Bix. And don't even think about down the road with the First Order and all that jazz, but let's just enjoy this time now.
In this series, we got the origin of the rebellions were built on hope line. So that was the
sacrifice.
Bellhop at the
Gorman Hotel.
At the Gorman Hotel, gave that to Cassian. Cassian later gives that to Jyn in Rogue One. She later gives that to the rest of the group. And
Melshi and his group, right?
Right. So
it all comes together.
Nice tie-ins. Nice all comes together. Didn't ever really feel heavy-handed in all that happening. You were ahead of me in watching it just by a few episodes, and I had a situation because now I was rewatching it. I had to wait. It was like,
all right.
I was close to the last three, and I had to stop, and we had to wait till we caught up. You had a graphic on our Instagram, and it was like Andor, Rogue One, and then the original trilogy, and you were like, "This is all I need from Star Wars."
All right.
So, what makes that all you need? Is it because we find that original trilogy that we grew up with, and it had all those themes. It had a fascism and a rebellion and whatnot. They were very broad themes.
It was the Skywalker story, though, right?
Right. But the Skywalker story was the main thread, and those were things in the background.
Right.
The Empire and all that. And those were very broad themes that for our attention span as kids, they were on a level that we could understand.
And we could fill in the imagination with our own imagination, too.
And now that we are adult fans, we understand the nuance of those militaristic fascism-y type things and resistance and rebellion and all of that were first presented to us in Rogue One, which is why I think everybody liked Rogue One, other than it immediately tied into Star Wars, but it was a more, I hate to use the word adult, because that seems like mature, maybe, a more, or maybe more nuanced. Maybe that's
mature and nuanced, right?
That my fandom, because as we want our fandom to grow with us, somebody addressed it in that way. And then Andor just built on that.
Right. It's kind of filling in the backstory of the rebellion is what Andor does. Star Wars becomes the Skywalker saga.
Right, 100%.
And then, I don't know about the sequel trilogy, but just kind of set that aside. But, I'm hoping that there's another future story that maybe is a whole new story. Well, it's not a Skywalker story.
Many Bothan spies died to get us this information, right? We haven't done that.
Right. There are stories that could be generated from the franchise that hopefully can be as well executed and written as Andor is. Hopefully it doesn't end with Andor, but for now, that's all we have. I mean, we have Mandalorian, we have Ahsoka, we have Acolyte. Mandalorian season 1 and 2 I really enjoyed because that was more of a popcorn thing and a serial from week to week, which I really enjoyed. But the other ones, I'm telling you right now, the Jedi are, to me, are not that exciting without a lightsaber.
Right.
As far as on-screen characters, I'm not like, oh wow, that's great.
Well, it gets in. I think one of the things I had with Ahsoka, that everybody was stoic to the point of like they were static. There's didn't do
emotions.
Anything. Right.
Very little emotions.
Right.
I don't know. It was like, I mean, people like it, and I'm not going to.
So I might have a hard time
begrudge that.
Right. And I had a hard time connecting with that. She just
so did I.
Like this
right. It's a lot of arm folding
and silence and nodding, and there was tons of stuff I liked about Ahsoka, and which is good because I didn't come in on the I wasn't a Clone Wars watcher, so that didn't interest me.
Well,
but
I mean, I'm not going to begrudge people who enjoy that, and that's fine. It just wasn't my thing, and I had high hopes for Ahsoka. I had high hopes for Acolyte, and I just didn't really enjoy those shows. I just didn't like the storytelling. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like. Right. It looked a little voluminous. It's just
right.
It just.
Well, you can this Andor they spent because of tons of money, and it shows. It all shows. It shows on the screen, and it shows in the production value and all of that. And I think maybe we might like these because they're a little closer to the Star Wars original trilogy timeline. So those
hit home,
crafts and the planets and the tech, and they're all very what we grew up with.
Right.
Yeah. So it'll be tough to top this.
Right.
But this is also isn't everybody's cup of tea. This isn't one of the great things about Star Wars, which is also a terrible thing because everybody expects it to be one thing. One of the great things about Star Wars is like the Rebellion, everybody has a point of view of how it should be done. So like Saw's over here and Mothma's over here and Luthen's over here. So, I like the original trilogy, or I like the sequel trilogy, or I like Rebels, or I like Clone Wars, or I like Skeleton Crew, or I like Ahsoka, or I like the Acolyte.
Right.
So if you can't find something that you like in Star Wars, then you're not looking.
Right. It's something for everybody.
There are different flavors and styles and gears that it shifts in. There's something out there for everybody. I mean, Star Trek kind of comes along later with that. DS9 is really political, and every series has its own take on that universe.
Right. And then that's a good thing that it's something for everyone. I mean, Andor is the thing for me. So that's all I can say. I just really enjoy it the most. I just love
it was
how it's built and how it's written and how it looks and how it's acted and everything.
This is streaming television done correctly with a property that is handled correctly. It's respectful to the material that it springs from, but not overly reverent. So take some chances here and there.
I guess we'll wrap it up today. And anything else, Jim?
Just we have friends everywhere. So
let's hope so.
So hopefully we have viewers everywhere.
Subscribers too.
I have subscribers. That'll be our new motto. So
thanks for joining us today, folks. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook and join our conversation. Check out the things we enjoy and like to collect and like to talk about online. And we'll see you next time for another episode. We have some fun stuff coming up for the summer. Join us next time on the Phantom Outpost, right?
That's it.